the Everything But Politics podcast.
All right. It's Everything But Politics. It's episode 179. And with us, at long last, Willie Randolph.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, fellas. Thank you. This is a pretty cool opportunity here. I'm pretty excited about what's about to happen. I hope it blesses people and we all do our parts within helping people.
Absolutely. Well, many people in your life, many people that are listening and watching this, look up to you as a leader. But prior to the leadership example you set in your life, spiritually, physically, mentally, I want to jump back to the beginning. Kid in Michigan. How did that kid get to where we're sitting today?
You know, I think the kid in Michigan was very different, but was put in a certain place in a certain time for a reason in that season. And it started with my parents. It started with my mother, my grandmother, and my grandfather, the ones that planted seeds, the ones that actually nurtured me and made me really understand what foundation and family was. Within just making sure that you take care of your ancestors, make sure that you be present, make sure that you're taking care of people, treating them the way you want to be treated. And so I was a short little fat bow-legged kid, and no matter how slow I thought I was, my mom and my grandparents always reminded me that you're going to be the best version of yourself. So just don't give up, keep pushing, ignore the negative and focus on the positive, and keep your faith and your focus and your family first. So he started there. But he had a lot of ups and downs, like we all do,
Yes.
But within those downs, there was always the right people there to pick me up and help me to pick up myself and walk and run in the right direction.
Physically run.
Yeah, I would say so. My grandfather did a good job when I would get off the bus. I remember as a kid that we'd get off the school bus and we had a long dirt road and the house was at the end, and he would wait, and he'd encourage me. He'd say, come on, boy, let's run. And so I'm maybe 5 or 6, and I just take off running out of the school bus and just sprint as fast as I could on the dirt road to my grandfather. And within doing that, I remember the excitement. I remember the gratification of making him happy, but also starting to understand that I had a different skill level than most kids, and remembering what it felt like hearing my classmates cheering me on. So I remember those 3 phases of the little Willie that was transcending into the other versions of me as I grew up.
So then you advanced through your childhood onto Central Michigan University. We're everything from there jumped forward.
Yeah.
From a college athlete and then into coaching. Talk to us about your time at Central Michigan and what that really taught you about leadership and, of course, coaching.
Okay. Time frame as a student athlete at Central Michigan or as a coach?
Student athlete, and then we'll pivot into the coaching.
As a student athlete, I started off at Ferris State University, and that was the first time frame that they had Title IX coming in, where a lot of student athletes don't understand that was where they had to equal out the women having a certain amount of sports in comparison to the men. Well, when that happened, I had just gotten to Ferris State University, cut the track program for the men's side.
You're 18 years old?
I was 18.
Okay.
And so being an 18-year-old, I'm first black male in my family to go to college. I'm the first to go to college other than my mom. So it was a really big, how would you say, is it an exciting time? But it was a very scary time for the family. But I was focused on, doing what I was supposed to do. So I got to Ferris State University, cut the program, and then I interviewed, I went and looked at Central Michigan and Michigan State, Sparty, whatever you want to say. And I ended up picking Central Michigan. So being there, I learned quickly that you can be number 1 from one level at other environments, and then quickly follow down to number 10 or 12 or 20. So I came in as, thinking I was the number 1 hurdler out of high school. I ended up being number 20 on that team. So getting to Central Michigan, I quickly learned what diversity was and adversity was. And I'll be honest with you, it was very difficult. I actually got cut that first semester of the Title IX where it reached Central Michigan, and they basically said, hey, we only have so many people. Now, my work ethic was the same as it was in high school, but it just got higher. I worked hard. I focused on what I need to do. I kept my faith first. I spoke to my mom and those people that believed in me, because at that time I started losing belief in myself because I wasn't getting the attention I was used to. And that was difficult for me because my identity was so wrapped up into my athletic piece of it. But my faith was the thing that kept me pushing. And so when I got cut, I remember calling home to my mom I said, Mom, like, I got cut, but I don't know what to do. She's like, well, don't give up, son. Well, there was something inside of me that said, you know what? Let's go up here to the athletic director's office. Herb Duromedy, I'll still remember him to this day. I walked up to his office. I sat outside the office. I waited and I presented why I felt I should have been on the track team still. He called my head coach, what ended up being my head coach that I took over his job many years later. And he called my head coach and he said, there's a young man in here, create another spot for him. He should be on the team. I went back to the program that next day, didn't say anything to my teammates, which they're probably hearing this for the first time. Went back to practice, continued on like nothing ever happened, and just stayed focused. And the years down the road, I became the number 1 400 hurdler, and things transitioned into other things of learning how to never give up, and to the point of, it was very much so humbling to know that if you fight and stand up for what's right, and if you trust and have your faith in the right spot, and it's not about always you, it's about a bigger purpose, the right thing will happen. But a lot of people quit when people tell them no. And I was very happy that my foundation didn't allow me to quit.
There's an important lesson there, especially for people that are introverted and scared to really speak up, is you don't ask, you don't get. So you speak on that, like being the braveness that's required to get what you want, because you've gotten what you want in life, right? The believing in yourself, being outspoken, and standing by what you believe in. And I think for you, a lot of that is accompanied by your faith.
Yes. I would say that for me, I wouldn't have that without my mom. I wouldn't have that without my grandparents. I wouldn't have that without going through the aches and pains of not having enough food, and learning what a mayonnaise sandwich was and a syrup sandwich was, and learning how to, eat the government cheese and the powdered milk, and still being happy with just being alive, still going outside and knowing that just because other kids had more than me, I still was equally a person in this world. And that my mom and my grandparents reminded me that you still can be just as good, if not better than them. So I think that part of my life, it was just another little test for me. It wasn't anything that I felt was going to break me. I felt that pouring into my faith and pausing, praying, reevaluating, and trusting, that's the biggest thing I think people forget. Like, you can pray and you can have faith, but if you don't trust it and you don't move within it, it's just you having a conversation, just thinking about whatever word you said. Just same thing as like people have a lot of crosses on their chest, but what do you really believe that cross means? How are you putting that to your work, versus just a symbol? And I learned, like, kind of non-instinctively, and I learned that you just really have to have something deep down within to push for what you want. And the difference between a want versus a need, that's also something that I've learned. I learned some things that I wanted were not what I needed. And I knew that certain things that I needed were for a bigger purpose, for what was necessary in the future. And I didn't know what that future was, but I knew I couldn't stop.
Yeah, so you go to Central Michigan, but prior to that, you're a big fish in a little pond.
Yes.
You get to Central Michigan, you're a little fish in a big pond.
Yes.
What did it do for your perspective on the world?
That's a good question. What did it do for my perspective of the world? It reminded me that we're all here and everybody has a part. And it's up to you to decide on if you're going to fight for your part in this world, or you're going to let other people dictate your positions. You're going to let other people maneuver you in ways that may not be what you agree with. Even mom and dad sometimes, aunts and uncles and grandparents, sometimes they can push you in directions that are not necessarily yours. But I learned that I am one of one. I am here for whatever time I'm supposed to be here. And knowing that that was something I was starting to learn, that no matter how big I was, how slow I was, how fast I was, I was a collegiate hurdler. They told me I was short, but in my mind, I was 6'10". Yeah. So I kept that in my mind, that I wasn't going to allow people to dictate my time on earth and in that environment. So I would take that actually from the track to the class, from the class to work or whatever I was at. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best version of me, and that's all I could think of, because that was an expectation of my mom. I saw how she worked. I saw how she worked with, dad gone, and I remember just her perseverance. I remember her commitment to loving us unconditionally. I remember her commitment to showing us you can still get your degree and still work 12-hour shifts and still find a way to get home to your kids and show love and show them that they can do more than what the world says this is where you're supposed to sit. And I was very, very grateful that I could feel that energy. I could feel that love, and I knew the difference from that versus what the world was presenting. And I told myself I was going to hold that true because it was too sacred, and I knew it was coming from a deeper part from her.
Merrick, do you like coffee?
I love coffee.
Well, we got you covered. Brick House Coffee,
The official coffee partner of the Everything But Politics podcast. Be sure to check out the link in description for more information, as well as our social media. Now back to the episode.
And Willie, you've trained a lot of young men and women. What is like your ultimate core message when you start training someone? Because they all have such massive goals. What is like your message to let them know like this is possible?
My ultimate message is to let them know that they're supposed to be the best version of themselves. That no one should tell them that they are not worthy. That no one should dictate how good they will be. But there'll be a lot of people that will try and tell you how bad you will be. So I always try and remind them, never, ever allow anyone to control your energy, your space and time, your talents that are still grooming into different levels, because you may be affecting someone down the road that needs you to be courageous, that needs you to be confident, that needs you to be loving, that needs you to be patient. I remind them of a lot of things, and sometimes I just listen. Sometimes people just need you to hear them and hear what they're going through. And sometimes with the little kids that I deal with today and the adults and the master's people, I realize that sometimes they just want somebody to hear and care. Yeah. And that's what I learned from my mom and my grandparents. Like, they listened with intention. They listened with an ear of, what if it was me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that perspective, I try and make sure these kids understand, like, live in this moment, not just a time, but when you get done with this time, hopefully you remember it well past the time that we shared.
Yeah. Well, most people that age don't always have someone like that to listen. Even like your parents might not like take you as seriously because like when you say you want to become a professional athlete or this and that, like you said, there's so many people that are going to tell you that you're not.
Yeah.
And to have a coach or a mentor to tell them the opposite, tell them how great they are and how great they can be is important, especially in your youth.
Yes.
No
Very
doubt.
much important. And I think that we all forget as people that, I remember as a kid, it takes a village. It's a statement, takes a village to raise people, So it's not just your family that's raising you. I remember my entire neighborhood kind of like stepped in when my mom was at work, and we helped each other. We would like go to each other's door and like, hey, you got some butter? And hey, do you need some bread? Like, our entire neighborhood was a family. And I remember many times, like, we didn't have a lot to eat. And sometimes I remember my neighbors didn't have a lot to eat or drink. And I remember that it was just one of those things that we were a community that really just saw that we meant something to the world. And so when we went out to the world, like, it was just so different, but we still knew that what we could do made a difference. So we were raised to make a difference, and that's what I try and carry on now.
Beautiful. And you do. Let's just clarify that.
We're a piece of many people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that can imprint on your life. And so I never take it for anything of my own, because we're all bought with the price, in the sense of, like, if we think about Christmas and Easter and whatever holiday or whatever you believe in, we're all here to make a difference in each other's lives. And I'm just a piece of many people. So I'm humbled that makes a difference.
Absolutely. So Central Michigan, you're advancing in your athletic and personal life. Were you in that role at Central Michigan as a student athlete? Were you finding yourself in leadership positions, or did those kind of emerge slowly after when you graduated and you're like, now what do I do?
I think as I grew more as a person, not just as an athlete, I started finding myself wanting to be around different people outside of just track and field. So I would migrate to, like, on-campus things, activities. I would migrate to different sports like wrestling, swimming, and like gymnastics and whatever sport, and I just would always find different athletes that had a mindset that was similar to mine, which was, we're trying to be the best we can be. We trying to be
life.
that, in life. Yeah, we were trying to feed each other success. And so I sought out that. And even with some of my college teammates, and you experience some of my college teammates that are still some of my best friends to this day, we connected because we had so many pieces that were similar, that were allowing us to bond in a way of growth upwards, not downwards. And we wouldn't allow anybody that was outside of that positive mindset to come around us. And if it was, we would correct it really quickly. So our circle became that. So our leadership pieces within on campus, and sometimes like doing things within fraternities and doing things within just like musical. I even find myself singing a national anthem sometimes at some events. I sing decently, but I don't know if I'm as good as you guys.
Let's hear it. Okay.
You got to go to church to hear that one. For me, like I found different skills that I didn't know I really had, because I just learned that it was really good to like just step out of your comfort zone sometimes to grow.
Yeah. So as you continue to grow, what was you were applying to coaching jobs? Were you offered a coaching job? How did you land your first coaching job?
You know what? I was in the corporate world for 6 months, and I remember going through a phase of like I felt empty. And I would work from 7 a.m. until like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and I would always find myself being gravitating to the track. And at this time, I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I had no family around. I had already gotten this job, and I was determined to not be a statistic.
Where were you in the U.S.?
In the U.S., at that time, I was in Saginaw, Michigan, moved from Saginaw, Michigan to Nashville, Tennessee.
Got it. Okay.
So I moved to Nashville, Tennessee.
The corporate job was in Nashville?
Yes, it was in Nashville.
Okay.
And I specifically picked, when I talked to my mom about interviewing for jobs when I was graduating, I said, I don't want to live up north. I know there's more out there. I see things on TV, and I know that there's more than just 3 colors. I knew there was more than white, black, and Mexican.
Okay.
And that's all I experienced in Michigan. And I said, I want to see more people. There's more life than what's being presented. And in certain areas, in certain communities, you just get stuck within this, this little...
You're in your product of your environment. Yeah.
And so you become your bubble. And then once I got out of the bubble, that's when I got to Nashville, and I realized there was so much more. And that's when I realized, like, with them being there, that was something that allowed me to grow into just being in my first coaching job. My first coaching job was at Belmont University. And being at Belmont, I didn't know after doing the corporate job was 6 months. And it was like, Mom, like, I hate this. Like, everybody's miserable. Like, I'm going to the track and I'm running.
Like you woke up every day for work and were like, oh,
yeah, it was that
terrible.
feeling. And a lot of people don't want to admit it. Like, if you wake up every morning and you're just like, here we go again. That's not your purpose.
No.
That's not your passion. That's your job obligation. That's someone telling you, you have to do this because you signed up for this, and that's what we expect you to do. And I realized quickly, I'm like, this ain't making me happy. This ain't it. And then when I got to the track, I would start meeting all these adults and different people as I was running around, and they'd all be just telling me about how their days just were long and it sucked, and they dreaded going back to now their responsibilities as adults to, take care of the kids, the family, the house, and everything added up, because as you get older, you get more responsibilities because of what you're accepting into your life. And then when you have a certain financial piece of it, that holds that. And so a lot of people were getting stuck into that. I was like, look, I called my mom, like, Mom, I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I know that I'd rather be broke and happy than being rich and poor on the inside. You know what I mean? And mentally just dying. And so she's like, well, you like helping people? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, you like that running thing? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, why don't you coach? Not one time was that ever presented to me in my entire life, even in college.
So your mom set the light bulb off.
She set the light bulb off.
Yeah.
She set the light bulb off, and from that point, I had really quit my corporate job. I started working in human resources at Vanderbilt, and then I literally told them when I started, I'm like, I can only work from 7 to 3 p.m. because I know I'm supposed to be doing something from 5 to 6. I didn't have the job at Belmont University yet, but I was moving in that direction. I met people on the track. So it was networks, so I remember taking out this name, Chuck Lewis. I still remember his name on a piece of paper in a binder. This is well before cell phones had notes. Like I would write everything. So I took it out the binder and I read it and I had his number and I called him and said, hey, my name is Willie Randolph. Just moved to the area. I'm on the track all the time. I've met these people, this, and that. Like, do you know of any track jobs in the area? He's like, sure. Like there's something over at Middle Tennessee State University. Tell them that I said you could call and like ask for Dean Hayes. I called over there. Dean Hayes actually ended up saying, hey, there's a job that just opened up at Belmont University. Tell them I said you could call if there's probably some grad assistant type of job there. Well, I didn't even meet these people face to face. I never met Chuck Lewis to this day face to face. So for me, I knew God was putting things in place that I wasn't even sure, but I was following and I believed it because I could feel it. So Chuck Lewis I never met Dean Hayes, which became one of my strongest mentors that actually called and got me my first real Division I job at University of New Orleans as a head coach. But being at Belmont University, my first coaching job was $5,000 a year.
Wow.
The second year was $10,000 a year. Third year was $15,000 a year. But guess what? I was happy. Yeah. I still worked at Vanderbilt in Human Resources from 7 to 3. I would get done. I go straight to the track, meet with the athletes, coach them from 4 until 6 o'clock, do my own running at the end, go home, make my tuna fish and rice, my chips and dip, go to sleep with a half a smile on my face, and wake up and do it every single day. I had purpose that I didn't know would transition from just that job into becoming a career.
So were you employed by Vanderbilt and Belmont at the same time?
At the same time. Yeah.
Wow, you were grinding.
I was focused on not being a statistic. I was more afraid of being a statistic and not living in my purpose than anything.
Would that thought of, I don't want to be a statistic, get you out of bed in the morning?
No, God was getting me out of bed. Purpose was getting me out of bed.
Yeah.
Drive was getting me out of bed. Fear was no longer leading me. Fear was trying to follow me, but I was keeping faith in wisdom from mentors and people in front of me.
When was fear guiding you?
Fear was guiding me when I would say I wasn't doing well as I wanted to do. So when I say that, when I was coaching, I would have points where I'm like, am I good enough to be coaching against these other Division I coaches? Am I literally aware of like what I'm giving into these athletes? Like I was paying attention to like making sure that I wasn't really aware that I was owning my energy because I was worried about what other people's energy was. You know, I was afraid of being worthy or good enough, you know? And so that was when fear was in front of me. But then I remember when I would turn into coach, I knew it wasn't about me. I knew it was about my athletes. Yeah. I knew it was like, you can't be afraid. You have to be the leader. You have to be assertive. You have to give them confidence until they figure it out on their own. And that's when fear would leave me, you know? And still to this day, like, I don't let fear lead me. I let it motivate me, but never make me afraid.
So was your mom, when your mom said you got to get into coaching, was that kind of the beginning of fear stop? Is that when fear stopped guiding you?
Yes and no, because there was many different channels, different phases of my life that fear still came up, you know, during the Hurricane Katrina time frame, you know, when everybody gave up on everyone there, like even the government gave up on the whole area. That's a whole nother part of my life. There was different phases in my life where fear jumped in when someone told me that I wasn't good enough for their job, but I knew I was more than worthy for their job. But it wasn't about me, it was about them, you know? So it was fear, like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna survive? How am I gonna, you know, be positive to my siblings and people that are looking at me to be an example that were underneath me, my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, and even the people that were haters, you know, that were wanting me to fail, but I was no longer paying attention to. So those are the levels of fear that would jump in, but I would always turn it into a motivating piece of it. I would never allow it to be a consuming, exhausting piece of it, not on the outside.
Yeah.
Ever.
I think this is an important pivot. You mentioned your time in New Orleans. So I think from what I understand about your story, knowing you as long as I have, when you got to New Orleans, it was your first head coaching job, am I correct?
Yes.
First head coaching job.
Yes.
And what year is this? 2004?
This is 2000. Well, Hurricane Katrina was 2006, so I got there in 2002.
Okay. So 3-4 years into the job, and you're really probably starting to advance as a leader.
Yes.
Confidence, pep in your step.
Yes.
And then Hurricane Katrina happens. What was that? What was that like for you and your team?
I'm gonna apologize to you earlier because when I go back into that memory, I have to be careful of how deep I go, because it was a memory that I couldn't believe was happening. It was a time that I couldn't believe that I was in the U.S. It was a time that I couldn't believe how heartless people were. It was a time that I could not believe what people do when their fear consumes them to such a degree, and that people that have forget about the have-nots. It was a time that literally it grew me to such a degree that I grew in confidence, but I grew within compassion. I grew within just understanding what the meaning of humans and people and unconditional love was. So when I got there and we went through, I was a head coach at University of New Orleans for 4 years, so I had not just normal U.S. students, I had international students from Zimbabwe, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, from all across the world, like France, and places that could not just fly back for safety to their families because they were dependent on the U.S. educational scholarship system. And so if that money wasn't there, especially some athletes from Kenya, Uganda, and other places like that, that meant that they didn't have food to feed themselves, as well as they didn't have money to send back to their family. So during that time frame of being a coach in New Orleans, that was already nurturing a different level of people that had different levels of needs and wants, while saying that you're going to give them education and make them an athlete. So I learned then that I had to be multidimensional within my communication style, my compassion style, my listening skills. So when we went to New Orleans, it was literally evacuating, literally at 5-something that morning. What I say is that the entire athletic department did not take care of us. They left us behind. And they said that, there was no bus or anything to get out. And they knew that, that maybe the storm was going to go on. They were following what the news was saying. And I knew why those athletes were getting their physicals. Something inside of me was saying, don't wait. Something inside of me was saying, get your athletes together and have a team meeting and be ready to go. Something told me to go to the bank and get a certain amount of money out of my own account and be prepared to evacuate the next morning, and to communicate with Eddie Nunez, which is now the head athletic director at University of Houston, that was at the time one of the associate ADs at University of LSU, and I knew him from my time frame at Vanderbilt. So I still had those contacts, so I called him and said, hey, I'm coming there possibly with some student athletes, about 50 of us, and I have 3 new staff members. Do you know where we could go? Knowing that leaving from New Orleans to go to Baton Rouge, and knowing that a storm was coming within 48 hours, all I knew was that my faith was leading me, and my trust, and like knowing some of the foundation of what my mom told me to do, which is never leave home without cash in your pocket. Don't trust everything that you see on the news. I learned how to turn off the negative and focus on the positive. I learned how to take care of those ones that were dependent on me. I learned how to get there and set up camp and communicate with those at the top in a way of humility. I learned how to communicate with the NCAA, championships and NCAA people, as far as like how to still find a way to get their scholarship money to them. I learned how to practice late at night, and still figure out how to write workouts when there was no track and still keep people motivated. I learned how to take the skills of making spaghetti and turn it to spaghetti sandwiches. I learned how to take tuna fish and making it to tuna fish and rice. I learned how to feed different levels of athletes at a church, at a chapel, and just make sure that we stay together unified. I learned how to commit to never giving up, staying unified. I learned how to never quit when people quit on you. And I learned just because people see you as important in your eyes, it doesn't always mean the truth until they show it with their actions.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, first off, what you learned. I'm sure that's carried you to where we are currently. Mm-hmm. Right before that, and all these lessons learned, what was the anticipation for Hurricane Katrina? Like 72 hours before, a week before, were there warnings? Like, what was the city of New Orleans like at that time?
Well, it was a storm that was the couple months beforehand. That was Rita, I think it was. I can't remember the exact storm, but it came by and it wasn't really anything but rain and wind.
In the Gulf?
Yes, in the Gulf.
Okay.
And so when it came by, the mindset of most of the people in New Orleans was more of like, it's just going to blow over like everything else. So no one had a sense of urgency. No one had this like, let's prepare to leave town. And a lot of people, even if they did, they didn't have the finances to just pick up and leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't have the whereabouts to go to, or that urgency because there was never an urgency ever sent because nothing ever happened. For me, being new to that area, that time, I was like, something doesn't feel right. And I got a call from one of my former assistant coaches, Trent Ellis. He's like, hey, you heard about this Hurricane Katrina thing? Did you see it on the news? I'm like, no, I'm too busy trying to get the cross-country team physicals because we got a cross-country meet within like 3 days. He's like, hey, coach, you should probably look at that. And that's when I went and spoke to our supervisor, Kathy Keene. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, what's the plan? Like, this is what I'm hearing is going on. There was no plan. She's like, well, just wait for the athletic director to say something. I was like, well, even within waiting that, I don't feel comfortable. Like, can I start making a plan? Like, can I use my credit card to get some hotels with my assistant coach and Houston and stuff like that? And she's like, you can do whatever you want to do, but we're not sure if we're going to be able to get a reimbursement for you. Well, in college, if you use your credit card, your reimbursements come like months later. So I was like, you know what, I'm willing to do it. So I went back to my office, had a meeting with my staff, had the meeting with the student athletes the next day, and we left. And then even 2 days later, the mayor in that area wasn't even saying to get out of town. It wasn't mandatory. So people were still sitting in New Orleans. People were still waiting. My sister and my nephew were still there saying like, oh, we're going to be fine. We're just going to go to a hotel and stay there if the rain comes up too high. And so I was torn between forcing my sister and my nephew to come with us and saying that they were making a poor choice or leaving with my team. Well, you fast forward that, the storm happened, my sister and my nephew were still in New Orleans, and they were calling saying, hey, like, we need help get us out. And I knew that I couldn't leave Baton Rouge because there was no way to get back. There was no roads open anymore. And I knew that the only thing I could do was to direct them as much as I could with some finances through, like, back in the day, you'd have to go to Walmart and like they'd have to send you the code to get the money. And then I said, hey, you need to hurry up. And like, I talked to mom going this route, I heard this route. So I was directing them to get out of New Orleans with her friends to Nashville, Tennessee, where my mom was at that time. And then trying to keep my athletes comfortable and confident and knowing that they were going to be okay within the present time. So that was what was going on in that time. So everybody else that was still in New Orleans, I remember having to take my team to the LSU stadium where they were flying in people that were coming from the stadium 4 days later to keep us from like thinking that life was bad for them because they had lost what they were comfortable with. But there was people that were losing way more that were being flown into the stadium and just being there with hopelessness, so it was a very different time that it made me stronger. It made me wiser. It made me more driven to understand that my purpose within helping people and people choose to love on people and choose to do the right thing versus the wrong thing. You always have a point in your head where you can choose right or wrong. You can't say that you don't. I don't care how old you are. Even kids know when something's right or wrong.
Yes.
And so as an adult, if you choose to go the wrong way versus the right way, or choose not to help someone versus to help someone, that's your choice. And so for me, it started from my foundation again to know that that was something deeper within my community as a kid and as my family. And as I became older, to stay in that model of I'm only here because of many different people. And that wasn't going to change during Hurricane Katrina.
What were the days to follow, like going back to New Orleans? How long were you away before you got back, and what was the aftermath like?
We were there the entire fall semester, so we were at Baton Rouge from September the 1st all the way until January when they forced us to come back to New Orleans with no lighting, no real place for the student athletes to stay. There was only so many professors that coming back, but I knew, and they said the reason why they made us come back because now so many students were like being pushed. They were going to different schools. And so if you think of the financial piece of it, they were going to different schools because now their financial aid and their scholarships are going to the other schools. They were no longer going to New Orleans. So New Orleans was saying, hey, we have control of these student athletes. They have to come back because we need to keep those bodies here to stay Division I. Even if there's the basketball team that's up here, there's the baseball team that's up here, all the non-revenue sports are down here. So we were the bodies, they were the finances. And so the athletic department were like, okay, well, we got to bring them back. We're going to put the good financial people into the dorms that are available and the places that are nice. The rest of you students, you have to go and stay in some hotels downtown in Bourbon Street. You're going to be able to figure out how to eat whatever we can figure out how to get you money to eat Coach, we're going to give you this little 36 passenger bus. We don't have anybody to help you get your students to class, but it's mandatory. And so aftermath, it was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of many dark areas in New Orleans. There was many areas that there wasn't grocery stores that was open. There are still places with water lines there. But I still kept my athletes thinking about, you still have a future. You still have your education you have to work on. You're going to grow from this. And so the aftermath was chaotic, confusing, scary, frustrating, upsetting. But at the same time, I had to focus on being committed to excellence, growing, pushing. You can do this. We're going to be successful. You're still going to be a doctor. You're still going to be successful within my student athletes, even though months after that, they cut the program. And so you did all of that to hold your program together. You had people donating shoes and clothes from different colleges, from different peers. Sacramento State was the first school, MTSU was some other places that sent money and found ways of sending us things. And then they said, you know what, we can't afford you to be here. We're going to cut your program, and good luck to you in the future. And when that happened, I remember saying to myself, that was the first time I remember getting angry. And I got so angry with the athletic department that I said, you know what, we've done all this within your name to keep your name above water. You know, you speak to the student athletes and tell them why they're no longer important to you, because I've done my job. And you tell them that they no longer have an opportunity here, even though I had already met with my staff and started calling other college coaches to get them opportunities at their school. I didn't tell that athletic department that their job was to stand up and say, I was wrong, they were wrong, and that they need to say, we cared about you, please, good luck, we'll do what we can. They didn't choose to do that, but I forced them to do it, and that's the only time that I remember saying to myself, if you don't force people to do what's right in certain situations as adults that are in positions, they'll do what they want to do until you say something. And so we have the same thing going on in our government right now. They're going to keep doing what they want to do until people that feel that they're less than stand up and say, you no longer can do that. We gave you this opportunity. So I reminded my athletes of what their worth was. So when they met with them, my athletes questioned them respectfully and said, you owe us this because you gave us that. And we were representing you. So, I mean, it was a lot that went on during that time frame. So I'm still grateful because God still made a way.
Yep.
Amen.
He still made a way. He still carried me through a lot of things. So
When the university cut off the program, what was the next phase in your life and career?
my next phase in my life was basically I went to Fiji with Athletes in Action. But I got an interview at Michigan State University. They flew me in, and I was number 2 there. Walt Drenth ended up taking that job. He was already there as a coach. Then I got flown into University of Memphis, and that was the interim head coach that was there. He got that job as well. And so I came back into, at that point, we had trailers. So I came back to New Orleans, and all my athletes were going into different directions. And I went back to my trailer, and I just started praying and asking, God, and asking my mom, I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I don't have a job. But I had saved up a lot of the FEMA money that I had. I had already purchased a vehicle that I paid cash for, so I didn't have to worry about bills. I had made sure that I had a certain amount of finances to stabilize myself for the next couple of months, but I was no longer coach. But I started talking to some of my peers, and some of my peers were telling me about some jobs that were open. Dion Miller, which is now the head coach at Arizona State, he was an assistant coach, actually, now I think about it. During that time frame, he told me about a job at University of Louisville. And he told me to call Ron Mann, and I called Ron Mann, another thing, and Ron Mann talked to me over the phone, and I had driven my truck to Nashville where my mom was at, and University of Louisville, he had me come in for an interview, and I started my next journey as University of Louisville track and field coach there, assistant coach.
Wow.
At Louisville.
At University of Louisville.
How was that like?
Man, that was a great time. That was a great time because I really learned what it was to be at large schools, at the cream of the crop, where you get a certain amount of money and you're expected to be at a national championship immediately. Conference regionals, that's one thing, but going to nationals, that's an expectation. Now, how high can you rank based on how much money they provided? So Tom Jurge and some of the many different athletic directors and people that were there, Rick Pitino was there, Pitino was there, all those coaches were there, and like they were by my offices. So you saw what excellence at the next level of coaching was. But you also saw what the next level of stress was. Like you could feel the aura of stress when you walked into the office. And when I walked into the office, you knew you had to sit your shoulders back. You had to own who you were. And even if you're faking it till you make it, you have to walk through that door like, okay, I'm one of the best track coaches in the
Yeah.
and I had to show that within just how I moved.
Did you feel that you were one of the best track coaches in the country at that point, or did that evolve while there?
No, I be honest with you, I never actually wanted to feel that way.
Why?
I never wanted to feel like I was the best track and field coach in the country because I knew that that was waiting for somebody else's validation. I knew that that would be dependent on what other people saw me as in awards and certificates. I wanted that to be something that was about my body of work as a person with the athletes.
But would it mean that or seem that way if you had championship banners on the wall? Because wouldn't that
Yeah, those things came together. Yeah, those things I got a lot of conference championships,
Okay.
a lot of rings and different things that, at the end of the day, they're in a box at home. They're
doesn't
not
that
fake.
solidify the greatness though?
According to whom?
Number
That-
one.
Who's number one?
It's kind of like Willie said earlier. He wants to be the best Willie Randolph.
Yeah.
It's not about being the best in the world because that's subjective.
Yeah.
But something that's not subjective is being the best version of himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. That was where I used to be that guy. But when I learned that that was wasting my time and my energy waiting for people to tell me that I was that dude, and I was going to these conventions and I was flying all over the country and I had certain athletes getting ready to go to Olympics and all the different things. And then when I didn't get that, hey, attaboy, I remember feeling like, dang, this sucks. I got all the way here with the best of the best and they're not even telling me I belong. And I was like doing all this to hear them say, you one of us. And when it didn't happen, I was like, man, F y'all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, so let me remember why I'm doing this. And if I'm doing it to give God the glory, then he's going to actually dictate my story, not them. Yep. And so for me, I had to remember my mom reminding me all the time. She's like, son, you need to slow down. You're pushing too much. You're not eating enough. You're not taking care of yourself. Why are you doing this so hard? She's like, I was just like, I got to make sure they understand. I'm one of them dudes. I'm one of the best hurdle coaches, sprint coaches in the country. I want to be like Mouse Holloway at Florida. He's one of my mentors. I want to be like Coach Anderson at Texas A&M. I want to be like so-and-so. But she was like, why can't you just be you and be that best version of you? And I remember that hit me in the face so hard, but it didn't hit me hard enough at that time, at that coaching journey. It hit me at University of Virginia, and it was literally weeks before she passed. And I remember she was getting sick at that point in time. And I remember that I was grateful that my finances were in such a way that I could actually help her and give back what I always wanted to give back as a kid. I always saw how hard she worked. And I asked God, I'm like, give me the ability to give her back what she gave us. And I knew that my siblings couldn't do it. It's not that they didn't want to do it. I knew that they weren't in positions in life that they could do it. And I knew that at that time that I saw her body starting to decline. And I just remember there was no medicine that was giving her time back. And I remember that every time that I was trying to teach her how to eat, how to walk, how to exercise, that her habits that she gained as she was growing up were something that was so hard for her to break. That even when I was trying to crack into those strongholds, it was still what she was used to: eating poorly, not exercising, not drinking water, not, a lot of things that we now know. And so I remember during that time frame that when she had come to visit, I had flown her into Charlottesville. I remember, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping, but I remember when she came to Charlottesville, and I remember like her energy being different. I remember her telling me the things she was telling me, and I remember her sitting on the couch as we sat in the living room watching blockbuster videos, which I don't even understand anymore. Like, I remember her telling me, she's like, son, you're moving too quick. You got to slow down. You got to find balance in life. You got to focus on your why, and your why is not here. It's why is later on. You got to keep God first. You got to make sure that you're working towards that story later on, not just the story right now. So many different things she was throwing to me. And I was hearing her, but I wasn't actively listening. I was hearing her, but I wasn't actively listening. And we all do that, because we take that time for granted. Like, they're going to always be here to tell us and to correct us, And I remember getting ready to, have her go back to Michigan and taking her to a hotel. And I remember hugging her and saying, Mom, I was talking to see you a couple weeks, da-da-da. And I remember her looking me in my face. She's like, son, I love you. And I remember that love feeling versus just the words that came out of her mouth was different. And I remember driving back, and I remember like weeks and months later that I remember my mom, her health declined again. And I remember like, you know what, I gotta do more. And so that's when I changed some things in my life, and I changed some of my movements with the urgency of validation to appreciation. I gotta appreciate the people that brought me over the bridges that I was walking over. I have to spend more time with my mom. I have to spend more time with at that time, my grandmother was 94. Wow. You know, and so my grandfather had passed. So I was used to long lineage. Like my mom was one of 13, you know, and there was no one that had passed on my mother's side. So for me, I was seeing one of the strongest getting sick. And I'm like, but all these around her in that area are not stepping up. Why? You know, and so I remember saying to myself, like, you know what? Life is short. You can't get a mom back. You can't get a dad back. My dad wasn't present, so that was my everything. You can't get a grandma, you can't get a grandpa back. But you can take time to make sure that they are part of you, because that impact they made on you, you wouldn't have it without them if they were great parents. And even then, you wouldn't be here without God and their parents. Your parents make a commitment to bring you here. So respect it even if you don't like it, you know? Respect it even if you didn't like it. And that's what I had to learn, and that's what I said, I gotta shift.
And at the time, from your time at Belmont to the time of your mom's health declining, did your faith always stay the same?
No, it grew.
It grew.
It grew. It grew, and it's still growing, because I think that we get too content with thinking that your faith is good enough for the day and the times that we're living in. You have to grow within your faith. You have to grow within your walk and your talk. If you're not growing, you're just staying stagnant, and your body's aging. But if your mind is not growing, then you're repeating things that time is not waiting for you, you know? So no, my faith grew, and it's still growing, because I knew that I didn't want to be just the same Willie. And I challenge myself sometimes every 3 to 4 weeks. I'm like, am I getting content with just being me? Like, what am I adapting to? Am I changing? Am I growing? Or staying the same? And as we get older, a lot of people just stay the same.
Yeah.
They get comfort. You know,
Totally.
Comfort and excellence, in my opinion, are not friends.
Never have been.
Cannot be.
What are some of the best ways to make sure you're still growing?
That's a good question. You have to have a good circle of people around you. I think you have to always put yourself in comfortable and uncomfortable situations within positive light. I think that you need to look back sometimes on the good things that you've gone through. Not so much the negative, because people like to look back on the negative and they expect it to turn into a positive, when sometimes it opens up wounds that have healed and that they need to stay closed. So and you need to make sure that sometimes you write down your thoughts and your feelings. And sometimes you just got to go out and just give to the needy and not to the greedy. Give to the people that have less.
that.
You know, like go out and say, you know what, we may be sitting in here and the lights are on and it's all comfortable and stuff like that, but outside there in the street, there's somebody that just wants something to eat. And are you taking the time to just remember that that could easily be you within a minute, you know? So, I mean, you have to stay present, stay humble, stay grateful, stay aware, stay reminiscent to certain things. And you have to always keep your mind of gratitude, keeping your attitude going upwards, not downwards.
And these seem like all traits that have been transcended from your mother to you, correct? And you give all the glory and credit to her with that?
No human deserves glory. God deserves all the glory in everyone's story, in my opinion. I give her respect and appreciation. And when I give her respect and appreciation, because I remember when she almost died and the entire family gave up. That's another part of the story. Like, I remember her story and what she did with that when she was in the hospital. And literally, I was a power of attorney, and my siblings were not really having the faith that they said. And some of her family members and grandmas and grandpas, and different people were saying, hey, she's on life support. She doesn't look well. You need to just pull the plug because she doesn't look like she's going to live. And they were dictating, trying to tell me, like, you need to quit and give up, because this is not how she looks, is not how she should be living. What she looks like death. What is fair to her based on what we know of her is not what should be going on from what we're seeing. And I remember saying to myself, and I remember going to a room in a hospital, And I remember praying and I said, God, please don't let my mom's story be what these people are expecting. She loves you. She loved you unconditionally. Let me be that person. That, if I got to protect her and like lock everyone out of this hospital room, which I did, until you do what you have to do, I'm going to do that because she would do it for me. But it's so quickly how people forget about what people did for you when you were down that they literally give up to you and go the other way around because it's easier. But I could not do that because I knew that I was not present because of her. I was not a head coach at that time at Central Michigan. I only got there because of her. So I remember, why can't I not fight for what was right and fight for her? And I remember when they got to the 7th day and they were like, okay, well, you know, if she breathes when we pull this plug from, pulls the life support out of her throat, you know, she'll be fine. It'll take a long journey to get back. But if she doesn't breathe, she'll be brain dead. And I remember allowing my two sisters went and bought her funeral dress, picked out a plot while I'm in the hospital. And I remember my older brother, Steven, he went to prison and some other different things. But he and I were like, if you ever saw Boys in the Hood, we were night and day. But at that time, God made it in such a way that he was the only one that could get to my mind to keep me strong enough to protect my mom. And he stood behind me. He stood by my side. When you see brotherhood, it's a great thing. When you protect each other, it's an amazing thing. And so when my brother was there to protect me, so I could protect our mother, that he was technically adopted. He was only my cousin, not my brother. But we knew each other as brothers. So anyways, I remember when they pulled it out of her throat, gasp of air, and I remember her starting to breathe. And I remember looking at my sisters, and I looked at my brother, and I could only celebrate and thank God. And I remember the journey was long, and I remember getting her back to my home and having like people to help me and stuff like that as a head coach. And I remember saying to myself, she's worth it. And I remember saying to myself, like, man, I would not want to be the person on the other side to hear her say, why did you give up on me? Yeah. No doubt. But the way she handled it was the story of grace and love. She still loved on my sisters as if they didn't give up on her. She still loved on those pastors and those people that we believed in that gave up on her. I didn't tell her, but her other sisters told her. She still showed them love. She took the dress that my sisters bought for her funeral, and she would wear it to church and say, this is what they were going to bury me in. They said I was going to be a vegetable, but I'm still eating. I eat vegetables. My mom was a bold one. She's like, this dress, you won't see me in it again until I'm going on to be with the Lord. My mom showed me in the face of life and death that your faith can do many things. But what you do with that walk and that talk after that was something that I was very grateful I was able to see, especially within the level of grace she showed, which her name was Grace, to those that literally gave up on her. When God put specific places at certain times to protect her. So, I mean, that my mom was crucial in my life. So was my grandmother. But there's people in our lives that are more crucial in your lives that you need to respect and appreciate and thank God for.
It's kind of like you said earlier, like you always know right and wrong. But sometimes doing what's right may seem difficult. But once you do it, it's easy because you know it's always been the thing to do. It's difficult and easy at the same time. Whereas what's wrong feels easy. Like doing wrong, like what your sisters might have wanted to do, felt like the easy thing to do, but it was actually the most difficult. It's kind of like an irony there.
Yeah, it was. It was, you know what, but again, sometimes we neglect being still, you know? We're in such a world and a time that we're rushing, trying to do everything all the time, quickly, get from here to A to B. But sometimes just being still is the best thing, because that's when you can hear things. And that's when you can be present within just outside of your physical and go into your spiritual piece of it, your connection to God that every one of us has. No matter what you believe, there's something deeper than all of us. And no one can tell you what it's supposed to feel like perfectly for you, because it may be different for you in comparison to your other brothers. But it's a connection that if you're still enough, you can feel it.
Yeah, no doubt.
As long as I've known you, 2 years or something, you've mentioned your mom on numerous occasions, just in everyday life, working out, getting food. She's mentioned quite frequently.
Yeah.
Same is true today. What was your mom like?
Well, I think everything that hopefully is sitting in front of you is a piece of what my mom was. Because I think that's what you all should represent on your parents as well. What you see sitting in front of you is a piece of my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather. The strongest people that poured into you is what you see. The strongest negative people that pour into any of us is what you see. So what was my mom like? Man, when I think of just who she was to me, she was strong. She was driven. She was compassionate. She was faithful to her belief in God. She was a light. She was encouraging. She was colorblind. She was people driven. She was, how do I say? She was fearless. She was fearless in who she was. She was fearless with even in her flaws. She was aware of her flaws, but she was fearless in knowing that no matter what, she was her. And even when I remember when medicines and things would cause her not to be her, because medicines aren't all good, I still remember her fighting out of that level of what the medicines were doing to her and still getting out of that phase. And I see her as like many people that have crossed this world during our time frame. If you are impactful within love, unconditionally, and many different things, your time is just not gonna be passing when you leave and everybody leaves the funeral home and everybody like you're buried underneath the ground. Your time transcends and goes on and on and on. And you can't help but to speak of those imprints. And so she's an imprint of a representation of her mother. And then my mother's mother. And my mother's mother was 105 when she passed.
Wow.
I got to meet her as a child, and she was blind. But I remember touching her hand as a kid, and I could feel her love in this soft, like very withered hand holding on to my little hand at that time, speaking to me. But it was such a warmth of love, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
And that was the same hand and grip that went to my mother's mother.
How old was your mother when she passed?
My mother was 69.
Wow,
Very young.
Very young.
She's one of 12, you said?
She was one of 13.
Oh, 13, my bad.
One of 13.
She must have been incredibly independent.
Very independent. My mother worked long hours every single day. She was a bus driver. She was a nurse. She went and got her college degree at the same time. She took care of us. She made sure that we got what we needed. I never understood why she took so many naps when I was a kid. But now I'm the king of naps. But I knew she took naps because she was literally trying to regenerate her body because she was going so hard from 6 a.m. until 9, 10 o'clock at night. You know, and as a kid, you don't see that. No. You just see them as parents just moving. But those 13 and 14 and 16-hour working days on the bus and whatever she was doing, you know, it took a toll on her body.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the part that we got to pay attention to as well.
Those characteristics you mentioned about her, all the good qualities, how do you take those and try to instill them into your athletes that you coach?
I try and take them based on learning who the person is first and trying to make sure that I'm giving what they need, not what I want. You know what I mean? So I have to be very patient and listen to what their needs and what they're saying that they need, not just as an athlete. Some of them need confidence. Some of them need assurance. Some of them need, you know, a laugh. Some of them need pressure taken off of them. Some of them need you to just sit there and just listen. Some of them need a lot of different things, but I'm very happy that the characteristics that I learned from my mom and my grandparents and other people, that I'm still learning and learn that, you know, we're all human, that we all need someone. And so I'm just trying to be present and being with them.
Well said. And as you think about, you've coached many, like hundreds, probably thousands of young athletes. I would imagine what separates the true great ones.
Just maybe I'm like, yeah, let me think about it. Yeah.
the true great ones that have achieved excellency, I would imagine there's an intense desire to be coached and being coachable. Can you speak on that?
Being coached versus being coachable, especially nowadays with the NIL system and all the other stuff going on.
We'll talk about that next.
Like that right there, and being coached you have to want to receive the knowledge and wisdom coming from the people that's pouring into you to be a better version of yourself. And you have to want to take some things that are uncomfortable sometimes. You have to want to receive their knowledge to make you better. And being uncoachable, that means that you literally think that you know a lot, if not sometimes more than the people that are pouring into you, versus saying, you know, the opposite. So, I mean, being coachable is not a good energy for anybody. I don't care if you are an athlete. If you feel like you know everything, you know nothing. You know, but a lot of people think that they know everything because of the internet, because of what TV tells them, because of all these different sources of knowledge or information tells them that they are wise when you're actually a fool because you think you're wise. You know, like you're foolish to think you know everything, but to think that you're wise and that you are still learning and growing, I think that's coachable. I think that that's wisdom.
Well, for those that you have coached that were uncoachable and have become coachable, what did you do to unlock that?
Sometimes you have to just stand firm within what you know until they start learning that this is not the way you're going to go.
You got to humble them.
You got to humble them in certain ways. And humility comes in a lot of ways. Some coaches demean you and talk down at you. That was never my style. Some coaches, you know, make workouts and things so difficult that they can't get through it.
You do that. You done that to me. You done that to me.
Yours was different. You came with a different attitude. You came in like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I got this. Oh, I can do this. And I had to remind you, like, this is something new to you. I had to remind you that this is a new space for you. You may be athletic.
I got humbled for sure.
And then there's a word that you told me you got. I was just confident in knowing, like, hey, okay, but we're going to do it this way.
Yeah,
this
we
is
did.
How it's going to go.
And we did.
It's no options, you know? So that part of it is where you switch your mindset to be confident within what you know. And your wisdom is something that I always say, like, my wisdom is from many people that I respect and appreciate. And so there's no way in the world I'm gonna give it to people that are greedy versus the ones that need it. And I used to do that. I used to give it to everybody, and then I'd be drained. I'm like, why am I so tired? Because I was spending so much energy on this kid that was uncoachable, trying to get them right, and they may never change. And I was trying to give it to the ones that are needing it, and I was too tired by the time I got over here. And then you realize it's like, where did I spend all my energy? To the people that were taking and not being grateful. And you have to get wise with that as you get older too, you know? So as a coach, you learn as you get older, like a Nick Saban was saying it well before it got to the time frame of whatever we were seeing on football players getting paid $5 million and $10 million or whatever, more than the coaches that are working and giving you their knowledge to get success. Like he was saying, like, how can you coach someone that is uncoachable or someone that thinks they know more than you and they don't want to follow through discipline? You know, those are the things.
But as a former Division I coach, what did NIL do to college athletics?
I think it diminished it greatly. It turned it into no longer a field of growth as a person. And as an athlete, it's turned it into semi-pro athletes that think that they're pro athletes, but they're really just entertainment right now. They're entertainment in a sense of they feel that they have made it at the highest level, but you think those NFL and those top NBA people, they're going to just bow down and give them
19-year-olds,
19 and 18 and 20-year-old? No. So right now, they're being told that they're extremely important, but they're not realizing that it's only for a short term. And then they're told, like, well, if you don't like it here, you can go over here. And that is not teaching them a life lesson that if you quit here, you can go over here and start again. If you quit here, and they keep getting these open doors that are given this fake reality that they can just quit and just not have no loyalty, no commitment, no dedication, all those things that you need in life. They're losing those skills as they're going through this supposedly being a ground of growth in college. It's no longer that. It's turning into just party time. Education is becoming less, and it's nowhere important to graduate because you got kids that are going to college now. They're almost 27, 28 years old.
But
Like, that's unacceptable.
And how about these 18, 19, 20-year-olds? They get that $5 million. Is there any financial education taking place?
There's very few people that are doing that, but I know they're trying to act like they're doing that. But from what I'm understanding, it's more so the agents that are educating them on not knowing how to take care of that money and taking that money from them or manipulating and moving it around. So there's not a lot of sources. I have a couple of friends that are trying to do that, educating them how to balance and budget that money with the NIL system within football. But that's few and far in between, you know, and those people that are not able to understand that, if they come from a poor background or come from an area where they don't know how to manage their money, just like anybody else, it's going to be gone. And you get taxed on it as well.
Yeah. Well, being close to college athletics, do you think there will be a limit to what's happening?
You know what? I would hope there's a limit, but I think that limit can only stop by reshaping what the NCAA is allowed to happen. They've given too much power to the student athletes, and now it's going to be hard to take that back because now you've given donors and other people that were there in the stands, at one point just enjoying the entertainment. Now they have their hands into it, and now you have the betting systems that's going on that's much bigger.
It's terrible.
That's into it. So now you have a whole nother ecosystem of athletics now that I don't think you can go back. I think that you can only improve upon what you have and minimize it to a degree, but I don't think there's any going back. It's just going to be a lot of really good coaches, unfortunately, that are going to probably bow out and probably die off pretty quick because they're not going to keep getting whipped and burned by people that don't appreciate them. And that's the biggest reason why a lot of coaches do what they do. They feel a certain amount of appreciation from someone along the way that keeps them going through their days.
Sure.
Did you ever coach D1 during NIL, or were you not?
I did. I was there at the very beginning of the NIL system. And that was during the time frame that you were hearing it in the cracks of students getting extra $1,000 here. Red Bull was big and kicking in. It was more like gear that they were getting. And then it was
sponsorship.
Sponsorship was the biggest thing. And then it started to turn into you hearing people getting $1 million, certain amount of thousands. But it was only in the major sports like football and basketball and then baseball. And then after that, the non-revenue sports were more clothing and selling their talents to smaller pieces. So you had to get more sponsors.
Wow.
What a shame.
So,
You go on, Merrick.
for us and those listening, if there's something they could pray for you, what would it be?
Perseverance. To never give up on giving to the needy, because it's not always easy to give. It's not always easy to give when people don't say thank you. It's not always easy to give when no one notices you. It's not always easy to give when you don't have enough finances for yourself sometimes. It's not easy to give when you know you got to sacrifice and go somewhere to help someone. And then you get there and then you get back and you're so exhausted when you get home that you just want to sleep, that you neglect your own health. A lot of coaches and a lot of people out there, those that give selflessly, people don't take the time to pour back into them. And so if there is a prayer, not just for me, but for everyone that gives honestly their talents to anyone, is to pray that they are filled back up with that same amount of passion they had when they went out to give that passion.
Yeah.
So when they come home, that they're not so empty or half empty, operating in, a level of not being 100%, that they don't feel like, what, I can't do this anymore. Because we need those people. We need those people to stand. We need those people to do the right thing. We need those people to be able to feel bold. We need those people to feel like, when no one else is talking, I'm not afraid to walk into the room and say, you know what, all of you are not speaking, but I'm going to tell you the truth if you like it or not, because there's kids behind you. There's a generation behind you that needs to know what's right, that needs to know where there's a future, that needs to know that they can make it, that needs to know that, commitment, faith, and love, and unconditionally, and color, and all the different things that the world is saying is not everything.
Yeah.
But with faith in God, you can accomplish multiple things. And so that's what I would want them to pray for.
Beautiful. And speaking of selflessness, tell us about your trip to Africa next month.
I'm humbled and excited about it. I've never been to Africa. I've never been to Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. I'll be going to March 5th through the 13th. It was one of my former athletes at Louisville that he and his brother won the Chicago Marathon, and he's won the Boston Marathon. They both have won. And so they called me during July and they said, hey, coach, we have this academy that we have these students that are coming off the street that we're trying to give them education and get them opportunities for scholarships in the U.S. and the distance side. But I want to open up the running sprint side of it. And there's no other person that we would like to do except for you, based on whatever I presented to him when he was a student athlete at Louisville, who is also, he's running for parliament there now in Kenya.
Wow.
So I just found that out the other day on why he wasn't answering my calls.
What's his name?
He's running for parliament, but
What's
when
his
he
name?
called me, Wesley Career.
Okay.
Wesley Career, very
Shout out
talented
Wesley,
man.
yeah?
Yeah, Wesley and his brother John Career will be running the Boston Marathon here coming up here, and it'll be the first brother duo that have won back to back, is what their goal is, because John won the Boston Marathon last year, so he's trying to win it again this year. And Wesley did that same thing back when he was at his running heydays before he became this politician. So I'm excited about going to Kenya because I'm excited about giving to those that truly are grateful for what you're giving them, because they don't know how much. They do know what we're getting here in the U.S., but they're going to receive it in a way that hopefully is going to remind them to never give up too. That just because you have one shoe that you're running around with on, don't give up. Just because you don't have enough food to eat, don't give up. And I know that I'm going there and I'm trying to like take a donation myself and give each one of the 160 athletes like a certain amount to get them some flour, so they can actually feed themselves when they go back home when they're not at the school, and taking some shirts and stuff. But I'm excited about it because I think every person in the U.S., everyone, especially the rich, you need to go to a third world country or somewhere and give and live their lives without your cell phones, without your money, without your privilege, without your everything that you think is what makes you you, and live like they live, to appreciate what life really is, and that's being a human and respecting each other. So I'm excited about going there. I'm excited about where I'm going to grow, within whatever level I'm going to grow through that. I know I'm going to grow because I'm looking forward to it,
When I mentioned the selflessness, what are you personally looking to get out of the trip, like as an experience, right? Seeing a new part of the world, new place, new everything. What are you, if you have expectations, what are they?
The expectation to see the world in a way through the eyes that God has put on my head, to see it as in beauty, to see it as in love, to see it as in care, to see it as in compassion, to see it as in just from the ground zero of like before there was buildings, before there was cars, before there was all this social media and all the things that don't matter. I want to see it in such a way that just says humanity was put on this earth to be bigger than what we are saying we are here for. I want to see it in such a way that I can see the animals, the lions, the giraffes, and the tigers, and whatever animal I see, I want to see it in its purest form. I want to see it in such a free way that it reminds me to remember that my freedom of my life was bought with a price. And my mom helped me to understand that, and my grandparents and the imprints and just meeting everyone that I've met have made a difference in my life. And so while I'm there and while I'm here, I want to feel presence of excellence, of unconditional love from God, not from this world.
Beautiful.
That's what I want.
Well, Willie, it's an honor to now feature you to the Everything But Politics community. Long overdue. Couldn't have asked for a better conversation.
I'm sure everyone in this room is coming out inspired, brighter, happier, full of more love and a clean perspective on life.
And finally, for those listening and watching that want to learn more, keep up with you, your work as a mentor, as a leader, what is the best way for them to go about that?
Instagram, I would say, Facebook, but you can keep in contact with me just praying for me. Same as I will pray for them. And knowing that no matter if you see someone or you don't see someone, you always should pray for them. You should always, if you think of someone, take the time to pick up the phone to call them. Take the time to say you appreciate them, no matter who they are. Because sometimes just taking time is the best time of life when you can give that to someone else. And giving to people is not about self. It's about us. And if it's about us, then it's about him. And if it's about him, then we can do great things. But when it's about me, we're limited to everything that we do. And I don't want to be limitless. I want to be limitless, but I don't want to be limited on this earth with my time because I was selfish within it. So be selfless. Find ways to be impactful. And don't stay within what the world tells you to stay within. Self. You can have gold, cars, money, and all the different things that you can imagine in this world, but you can't take it with you when you leave. I've never seen somebody take all their belongings to their grave in a hearse. I've never seen anybody come back and say, I have all my belongings in heaven and or hell. I've never heard of that nor ever seen that. And all I can say is this: appreciate your time. Own your time. Be grateful with your time. Share your time with the needy and educate the greedy, and then move forward.
Amen.
Willie Randolph.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
God
Willie.
bless everyone.
Thank you.